Hello, my name is Dr. Charles Young and I'm one of the Care Vision's directors. In this Insights video, we'll be hearing about risk factors for dementia from an interview with Professor Sube Banerjee about the Lancet Commission report into dementia prevention, intervention and care. Professor Banerjee is the Executive Dean for the Health Faculty at Plymouth University and one of the international experts who co-authored the Lancet report.
There are 12 risk factors for dementia that can be potentially modified to reduce the risk of developing dementia. The Lancet report encourages people to be ambitious about prevention, as modification of the risk factors might prevent or delay up to 40% of dementias in a population. What does the Lancet report mean by stating that 40% of dementia can be prevented?
The 40% is the amount of dementia or cases of dementia that you get in a population. So in the United Kingdom, that would be, what, 850,000 cases of people with dementia at any particular one time. So it would be about the new cases that are happening year on year. If you made these changes throughout your lifestyle, then up to 40% of that is potentially modifiable. Now, not everything that's potentially modifiable is actually is it possible to eradicate it from the population? Mm-hmm. It would be very difficult to eradicate depression from a population, for example. It would be very difficult to stop everybody from smoking. So there are a number of things that are amenable to change and a number of things that aren't.
Why should people address their modifiable health risk factors?
Again, it's very important for us to start identifying those things that are potentially modifiable, because if we have great heart health and if we decrease smoking and treat diabetes, which are two really strong and powerful factors, if we do that, then there are benefits to individuals in terms of cancer, but there are benefits in terms of heart disease, there are benefits in terms of the prevention of dementia, and that's a really important message. It gives you even more reason for doing the right thing. If you look at all of the factors in the Lancet Commission, from education to hearing loss to treating hypertension through to social isolation and diabetes, we know that treating those has multiple health benefits. So having a system that attends to those, if it's going to be decreasing the incidence of dementia as well as decreasing deaths by heart attacks, that's going to be really good.
Is alcohol consumption now considered a risk factor for dementia?
Yes, it is right. And I think the point that you make about the fact that there are things that we can do throughout our life course in order to promote brain health is absolutely right. So for alcohol, that was one of the newer things that have come in. And we are talking about heavy alcohol use here. We're talking about an intake of over 21 units per week. So that's drinking at a relatively high level. There is still this U-shaped curve and this kind of Mediterranean thing about heart health that applies. But yes, if you're drinking heavily, that kills brain cells. And that is a problem in midlife as well as in later life for the development of dementias.
So why is air pollution a newly identified risk factor for dementia?
So for air pollution, you're absolutely right. The Lancet Commission did suggest that there is an emerging evidence base that has really come out in the last 4 or 5 years since the first Lancet Commission, but an emerging evidence base that atmospheric pollution, that air pollution of particular types may well be detrimental to your brain health, in the same way as alcohol is likely to be detrimental to your brain health. And traumatic brain injury is likely to be detrimental to your brain health. And clearly there are other things that air pollution will do in poor air quality. It will affect your respiratory health. It will affect your cardiovascular health. And it may be through these respiratory and cardiovascular problems that your brain is affected. That may well be the process.
How does the risk factor of head injury affect dementia risk, particularly when it comes to sports?
What we're talking about with traumatic brain injury is generally repeated traumas, as you've talked about in terms of sport, or individual single traumas that may be to do with road traffic accidents and other things.
Mm-hmm.
What's become clear is that that is an important factor. So that you've talked about the issue with football in the United Kingdom. The issue is much more strong for American football, of course. In the US, when the National Football League has done a lot of excellent work looking at the effects of multiple traumatic brain injuries on individuals who've worked in professional football and in college football. The difference between professional footballers and amateur footballers is the amount of football they play and the amount of practice that they have. So that the actual exposure is very much higher in those individuals who are professionals compared to those who aren't.
Why is loss of hearing a risk factor for dementia? And how are people with hearing loss affected?
One of the things that enables the brain to become more connected is stimulation of all sorts. So you talked about social stimulation. That's really important in terms of creating an engaged individual whose brain is working hard. Now, one of the problems about sensory loss can be that you have less of those inputs. You get less stimulation from the herd environment with respect to hearing loss, and that can interfere with one's social communication and one's social interactions, and so you get less of that as well. So one of the things that we were interested in with hearing loss is that there are obviously ways of dealing with hearing loss for many people, not for everybody, but for many people. And there would be ways of mitigating those decreased social contacts for those individuals who have hearing loss, which is not remediable as well. And I think that it points to the fact that that all of our senses stimulate our brains. And if we stimulate our brains connect themselves and start to and can even kind of heal themselves in some way. That's why social isolation is really important, even in later life for people with dementia. We need to have people with dementia need to have lives that are still connected socially, where they are active and able to interact socially.
In terms of stimulating the brain, is it more about doing puzzles and crosswords, or is it more about a range of everyday social activities and conversations?
I think it's much more the latter than the former. It's much more about that whole set of social interactions that one does, rather than a specific magic Sudoku that will cure your brain or whatever. I think that doing puzzles makes you better at doing puzzles. And that's great if you like doing puzzles, because you get better at doing those puzzles. And people who do crossword puzzles generally like doing crossword puzzles. And that is a form of mental stimulation. But there is so much more to sensory and mental stimulation than a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku. Yeah. And actually, it is that balanced life which includes social interaction and that actually seems to be the thing that is most useful. Things that include physical activity, so exercise, that include doing things that you need and want to do.
If people address all their modifiable risk factors, can they prevent dementia?
The trouble is that even with the most connected brain, even with the brain that's been best looked after throughout its life, it is still possible that you will develop Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah,
that's a difficult thing to hear, because, as most health states are, they're an interaction between your genes and your environment. They depend on luck as well as good behavior during life. And there are people who are, there are Nobel Prize winners who've gone on to develop Alzheimer's disease. There are people who have been, fantastic authors who with gigantically connected brains who have gone on to develop Alzheimer's disease. I think at best one might think that, and part of that is going to be your genetic makeup. And by that, I'm not talking about simple genetics. It's a complex distributed genetics. Part of it's going to be to do with that. Part of it's going to be to do with your lifestyle. And it's impossible at the moment for us to work out on an individual basis whether you are one of those people who would benefit or not. All I would say, though, is that we have if you look at all of the factors in the Lancet Commission, from education to hearing loss to treating hypertension through to social isolation and diabetes, we know that treating those has multiple health benefits. So having a system that attends to those, if it's going to be decreasing the incidence of dementia as well as decreasing deaths by heart attacks, that's going to be really good. Okay. There's only one other thing that the Lancet Commission says about this is worth noting as well, though. Because we have an aging population, even if we carry out these preventions, then there will still be an increasing number of people with dementia in the community that's simply driven by population aging and our success in enabling people to live longer lives. What we have to do is ensure that people live well, whether they have dementia or whether they don't, and that we are appropriately hopeful and optimistic about the quality of life that individuals can have with dementia.
We're grateful to Professor Banerjee and the Lancet Commission report authors for their clear insights on dementia prevention. You can read more about dementia prevention, intervention and care 2020 report of the Lancet Commission online at the references on screen. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel for more Healthy Aging Insights videos from CareVision's Healthy Aging.